Yes.
Is he gone?
No, he's back.
He's back, okay. He was still gone, okay.
He's running late.
Someone besides me for a change.
Call to order a regular meeting for the Normal Local Liquor Commission. I can never say that. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Coos?
Here.
Mr. Fritzen?
Here.
Mr. Preston?
Here.
Mr. McBride?
Here.
Mrs. Lorenz? Here. McCarthy is not here. Ms. Gaines?
Here.
First order of business is approval of minutes of the regular meeting of March 21st, 2016, and approval of minutes of the special meeting for May 16th, 2016.
So, second.
Thank you. Any changes or modifications? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McBride?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz? Aye. Ms. Gaines?
Aye.
Mayor Coos?
Aye. We have one complaint and citation that was settled previously. That's CY Heritage Inn of Bloomington, OPCO, doing business as the Bloomington Normal Courtyard at 310 A Greenbrier Drive. They were had furnished alcohol to a person under 21 years of age for the second time in 3 years. A fine was assessed of $1,000, and that fine was paid. And that would conclude our business here. Motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McBride?
Aye.
Ms. Lorenz? Aye. Ms. Gaines?
Aye.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mayor Coos?
Aye. The liquor meeting is adjourned. Call to order a regular meeting for the Normal Town Council for July 18th, 2016. Please call the roll.
Mayor Coos?
Here.
Mr. Fritzen?
Here.
Mr. Preston?
Here.
Mr. McBride?
Here.
Mrs. Lorenz? Here. Mr. McCarthy?
Here.
Ms. Gaines?
Here.
We'll begin with a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we begin tonight, I would point out that we have some guests traveling from far away, from Israel. Many of you know about the Friends Forever program here that happens here every year, and this is our group of students that have come to spend 2 weeks with us, and we thoughtfully brought out all the hot, muggy weather for you so you could know what it's really like to be in Illinois in the summer. Again, these are students that are here. 5 are Jewish, 5 are Arab, and at least I think is that the proper mix? I know it was a little different last year. And they are here for team building exercise. And they're here in our community for 2 weeks, so you'll probably see them in other places throughout the community. But for them, this is a much longer commitment than a 2-week commitment. It's over a year, I think, where they, when they go home, they continue what they've learned here and in collaboration. So we're thrilled to have you in our community. Thank you for being here, and we'll no doubt see you many times more in the next 2 weeks. I gotta find my agenda here. Our first item of business is the omnibus agenda. These are items that are routine in nature and will be handled by one vote unless a council member would like to pull an item for discussion. And I would like to be excused on voting on any bills I may have incurred my duties as mayor. Mr.
I'd like to be excused from voting on the WGLT bill.
Thank you.
Like to be excused from voting on expenses incurred as councilman.
Thank you. Ms. Lawrence?
I would like to pull an item. Item F,
Okay,
grab road item.
just item F.
Just item.
Move approval.
Second.
Please, items we're considering on the omnibus agenda tonight are approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of July 5th, 2016, and approval of town of normal expenditures for payment as of July 13th, 2016. We have a resolution waiving the formal bidding process and authorizing the purchase of and installation of a tornado outdoor warning siren. We have a resolution to accept bids for the fiscal year 2016-2017 miscellaneous sidewalk improvements. That's the 50/50 sidewalk program with ADA ramps, and award a contract to George Gildner Incorporated in the amount of $204,790. We have a resolution waiving the formal bid process and authorizing a contract with Champaign Signal and Lighting Company for the maintenance of traffic control equipment, highway lighting, and utility locate services. A resolution accepting the low bid and authorizing a contract with Wilcox Electric and Service Incorporated for the upgrade of lighting systems at the Normal Theater in the amount of $56,949. A resolution to appropriate $1.4 million of motor fuel tax funds for the bituminous resurfacing of various streets for the 2016 motor fuel tax street resurfacing project. We have an ordinance accepting permanent sanitary sewer easements from the property owners of 801, 803, 805, 807, and 809 West College Avenue, and approving compensation of $1,000 per property owner for the easements. And an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2015-2016 operating and capital investment budget. Please call the roll.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McBride?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz? Aye. Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Ms. Gaines?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. Item F is a resolution authorizing additional funds in the amount of not to exceed $300,000 for extra work required to remediate unsuitable subgrade soils on the Rab Road NCHS to Towanda Bard's Road Improvement Project.
I'd like to move approval.
Thank you. Ms. Lorenz?
And he read my mind.
Yeah.
Mr. Brown. Honestly, I pulled this item hoping that we could maybe have some discussion. Maybe some of you also have questions about, the unique nature of this, the sizable amount of dollars that it's going to take to correct it, and maybe help us understand why that is. And then also, kind of the impact on timetable now. And I guess I'm thinking ahead, maybe 4 or 5 weeks when the school will get back in session. And so if you could address some or all of those issues and maybe any other questions, I'd appreciate it.
Well, I guess we'll start it with the project is essentially about a 2,400-foot long project from Towanda Barnes Road to Normal Community High School along Rab Road. Project was designed under the motor fuel tax standards. We did a soils analysis, which consisted of taking borings at 10 locations along that 2,400 feet. The borings go anywhere from 10 to 22, 24 foot deep. Look at those soils, especially those soils that are in the range of the subgrade that the pavement will be sitting on. Those soils are analyzed for their compressive strength, their moisture content, various other properties. We also look at those soils because the remediation of the original subgrade on this project was to be a lime modified soil, which means we incorporate lime and moisture if needed into the soil to cure it out and get a stable subgrade. So we did all that at the initial design phase, came up with that, yes, the soils would readily be lime modified, and it looked like about 4.5% to 5% lime would be needed to do that, and we proceeded from there. When we got under construction, we of course installed a crossroad culvert was the first thing back in March. Then we installed the mainline storm sewer, and then we kind of halted work until school got out. Well, when school got out at the end of the school year, we started on removing the existing roadway. And soon after we got into that, we realized that the conditions there were much different than what those soil samples had shown us in 2014. Primarily, not the soil type so much, but the moisture content of the soils. The water table was much higher than what we had observed during the initial testing. During the initial testing, only 2 of the 10 borings showed really any high water table, and even then, it was at like 6 to 10 foot, which really wouldn't pose us a problem on constructing the roadway. Here, the water table was essentially, after we had removed the original roadway, which maybe was a foot of material total, water was right there. I mean, it was right at the surface. So then we had to drop back and start looking, okay, what can we possibly do to remediate this situation? Well, they brought in engineers from IDOT, materials engineers from IDOT, our consultant, our geotechnical consultant, engineers from the geofabric industry, who we also work with often in these situations, put fabrics in along with aggregate. They tried about 3 different solutions, different depths of undercutting, different size rock, different fabrics, and really nothing seemed to work. The subgrade was still unstable. Mud would pump up through the rock. The geofabrics were pumping up through. It was just, nothing seemed to work. So we had to drop back, start looking at it some more. And the next solution was, well, first we got to get rid of the water. That's plain and simple. So that was where we went to the under drains. And initially we were looking at maybe just putting lateral under drains in, running across transversely across the road, because we could connect those into inlets that are spaced all up and down the road. Well, we got looking at that, that wasn't going to probably do enough to take all the water away. So we looked at putting longitudinal under drains under each side of the road, undercutting the existing road 18 inches, putting in 10 inches of large diameter 1 inch to 3 inch rock, we call it RR1, and then capping that off with 8 inches of CA6 gravel, which we have on most roads. So that's where we're at now. We're getting all the prices in line to do that work, and we'll be starting that. And there's really no guarantee that that's going to work, but we think that's probably the best solution, all the parties involved, and that once we get the water out of there, we think we can probably then get a stable subgrade.
And the timeline?
Timeline, we've lost over a month probably now, due 1 to this problem, and 2, we've had some significant rainfalls too that would have delayed us anyway. So we're looking at probably, mid-September right now of completing the roadway under best case scenario.
You have some photographs I thought you might show us if those come up.
Oh, wow.
This is a photo of the initial subgrade after we removed the roadway surface. And that rutting that you're seeing there is caused just by that small rubber-tired backhoe, which is fairly light compared to what we would normally, we call it a proof roll. When we get a subgrade down to the elevation we want it, we fill a loaded truck with approximately 15 tons of material and run it on that subgrade to test it to see if it's stable. Well, that loader is much lighter than that. We wouldn't have been able to get a truck up and down that subgrade. It would have just buried itself and probably wouldn't have gone more than 10, 15 feet. So that was initially what it looked like. This is a photo after one of the first test sections we did. They put down 11 inches of 1 to 3 inch stone, and they were going to cap that off with 4 inches of regular CA6 aggregate. But before they even got that done, the mud started to see there in the tire track. The mud started pumping up through, and then that darker material in the background coming up through, that is the actual fabric that they put down on the soil itself before they put the rock on it. It started pumping up, so it was pumping up through 11 inches of material.
Oh.
And then this photo just shows a test hole dug after we did that, and that is the groundwater level right there.
That's amazing.
It's amazing the roadway that was there
Yeah.
was in as good a shape as it,
Yeah,
as it was.
That's what was kind of surprising. But then, like in 2014, the water table was not that high, so we don't know. And I talked to the geotechnical consultant today even, and he said, it just looks like a perched, they call it a perched water table, and none of their borings at the time showed anything that high. It showed, like I said, 2 borings. One had, I think, water at like 6 foot, and another one was at like 12.
Mr. Brown and I talked several times about this, and trying to speculate on why this became a problem. It wasn't evident in 2014, and there really isn't a good answer. We can speculate all day as to what might have happened up there. But we also know that we've had very wet conditions for a while, and it's we're seeing not nearly to this extreme, but wet conditions throughout the community. This, I believe, Mr. Brown says he's never encountered anything like this in his long and illustrious career in road building. And I think other engineers said they hadn't seen anything like this ever. It's a very extraordinary situation with the subgrade, which is, creating the need to remediate using extraordinary measures and expensive measures. But it really has to be done if we're going to proceed with the road. And as Mr. Brown said, we believe this will work, but at this point there's not an absolute guarantee of it. But I think all the engineers have put their heads together and felt this is the best solution, and we believe that it will work, but we won't know till we try it.
Yeah, we've had 3 materials engineers from IDOT involved in this. Their Bureau of Construction engineer, 2 or 3 of our consultants from the design group, also our geotechnical consultant, and an engineer from the geosynthetic fabric company that's going to supply the fabric. So, and they were all pretty much in agreement that it's the worst they'd seen around here in a long time. And it's the worst, as I said in the report, in 31 years, and then being around road building another 10 probably before that. This is by far the worst case I've encountered.
Mr. Fritzen?
A couple of questions. One, oftentimes this time of year when you're traveling on interstates, whenever you see crews working under lights 24 hours a day, would a scenario like that be possible, or even cost? I'm sure there's a cost to that, of course, but and would it allow you to recoup enough time to really make it worth the expense?
I mean, of course, it could be possible, but then, of course, you would be paying overtime for all those hours worked, outside of the regular 8-hour day, and you'd have the cost of lights, and you are not near as productive in this type of work at night. If you're just out paving on a highway or pouring concrete or something, that's one thing where everything's ready to go. You can set up lights, the area you're working, and go and move them along. Here, you're going to have multiple pieces of equipment trying to excavate to certain depths, and definitely could be done, but I think the cost would raise significantly from what it is now.
From what you described, it sounds like you would be able to recoup enough of the lost time to, if you aren't going to get it open before school starts, then a couple of weeks versus a month, you don't really gain much, I guess. So,
right.
So my second question then would be, what can we do, or what would we plan to do, if anything, when it comes to traffic control through police or whatever in the heavy usage hours, considering that all the approach to the high school has to come from the west, and there's a grade school over there, and I know the hours are changing for high school and grade school start times and whatever, so everything's going to be new to everybody when school does start. So are we formulating a plan there to step in and help with that?
We are, and I've communicated with Mark Daniel, the superintendent, that we'll do anything we can do to help facilitate traffic to and from the school and address whatever congestion results from this closure. In fact, I'm meeting with Mark tomorrow to discuss this. He has some ideas. They've been great. First of all, Unit 5's been very understanding, and they've obviously going to be working over the next few weeks to get word out to the students and faculty and parents of this closure, and we will work closely. We don't necessarily have a plan today, but we will work closely with them to develop a plan to mitigate the inconvenience created by this closure. Again, it was our goal to have this done by middle of August, and we were, I'm sure had we not encountered this problem, we would have no trouble meeting that goal. And we're saying mid-September. We'll try to get it done sooner than that. We'll push as hard as we can, and weather permitting, we might. But we're saying mid-September. That's probably the most likely scenario, and hopefully it's a little bit better than that. But we will work closely with Unit 5 and as well as the busing group to try to come up with a plan that will at least minimize the inconvenience for 30 days or so.
I believe they have had some experience with that during the Towanda Barnes project. I think they had several days where they were only able to access from the west. So they at least have some
They do.
idea how
They
they
have
can
some
probably
ideas,
make
yeah.
that work.
Further on the item?
Yeah, Mayor, I have just one.
Preston?
Yes, thank you. One follow-up question for staff. While this situation is rare, when additional costs like this come up after a project has already been approved, I mean, would IDOT ever consider appropriating some additional funds from STU rather than this coming out of MFT at all?
We wish they would, but that's the limit. The STU is limited to that grant amount, and there's no more money available. That's the cap. The good news is we can use motor fuel tax funds, even though it's our allocation. It's not as if we're taking money out of the general fund for this. We're able to use MFT funds. And frankly, had we known this condition existed before we bid it, we probably would have ended up spending it anyway. But to answer your question directly, no. Unfortunately, the STU funds are capped at the $1.18 million.
Yeah, we got about as much as we could out of the STU appropriation for this project at the time that was available in our MPO.
Good, thanks.
One last question, that was part of my question as well, but I like the way that it's structured in terms of not to exceed a certain amount. Do you feel pretty confident with that amount being sufficient?
Yeah, I do. I think,
probably-
there's always unknowns, but that seems like a pretty safe number.
This project is not a good precedence, yeah. Okay.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McBride?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Ms. Gaines?
Aye.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. The item is approved. We have one item of general orders tonight, and that's a resolution conditionally approving an amended site plan for 1430 Fort Jesse Road, and that has to do with the Grossinger Motor remodel.
Move approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Is there do you have a presentation, or are we just going to discussion on
We
this?
really don't. I think the only really issue here has to do with the lighting on the site. You did receive a favorable recommendation from the Planning Commission for the amended site plan. Exception was with the lighting, and the Planning Commission recommended what I'll call kind of a compromise solution as it relates to lighting, and the applicant has submitted a revised lighting plan that would comply with the Planning Commission's recommendation. That is not, it still does not comply with code, but it is significantly improved over what exists on the site today. And the revised lighting plan is an improvement over what was initially submitted. So staff is still, we're recommending, we really have to recommend code that the applicant comply with code, but I will say what they presented is a pretty fair compromise in our opinion, and it represents a significant improvement in terms of the site lighting over what exists today on that site. So it is an existing condition. We've got to remember that. And both the dispersion of light on the site and the quality of fixtures are going to be significantly improved over what exists today, although it still doesn't quite meet code. I think, what's the average foot candle, about 25 on the site or something, roughly?
Yeah, so basically the front row of the display vehicles closest to the road would be just under 26-foot candles, and then the next row in closer to the building, the interior would be closer to 16-foot candles, so 26 and 16, which is lower than what the commission recommended.
Code is 10, and I'm told between 10 and 25, 25 is not 2.5 times brighter. It is modestly brighter, but not dramatically brighter. I guess that's really probably at this point, as far as at least as it relates to the Planning Commission's deliberation of this matter, that's really the only outstanding issue. Certainly the council is free to look at other aspects of the plan and offer any suggested modifications, but as far as the Planning Commission is concerned, that was their the major point of discussion.
Thank you. Comments or discussion on this?
I'll go first.
Fritzen?
What do you think?
I'll go first.
The report talks about the code permits a maximum average of 10-foot candles. So, as you described, there's some areas here, obviously, that are more than that, and some that are closer to that. And you provided the map of the foot candles or whatever you call this document here, which I don't. I confess I have no idea how to read this other than there's a lot of numbers on here, and I assume those are foot candle measurements that are found throughout the property there. So I guess I'm looking for what's our maximum that is in the area, and since we're talking about the code talks about an average, then I'm sure we have some that are even higher than
Right.
considerably higher. So help me sort that out, if you
So
would.
the highest light levels you're going to find are pretty much right under the fixture, or depending on how the light throws from the fixture, it's in that vicinity. And here, it's the highest levels are going to be somewhere around 50 or lower. But the average at 26, I mean, that just shows you the range of how you're getting that average.
So much has changed in lighting with the types of lights, and I know we've been, incorporated a lot of different, I don't know if it's technology or just the idea of how to angle them, the different kinds of lenses on it to diffuse light differently and everything else. I don't know how current our code is when it comes to what's in play today. Do some of those things mitigate, if the code says an average of 10, if with the new light fixtures or a new way of installing light fixtures and different kind of bulbs and all that stuff, is there a case that maybe 10's too low for something like this? I don't know.
No, it's a
I mean,
good
that's an
question.
opinion.
And there's certainly subjectivity. When we created the code, 12, 13 years ago, we used the IESNA standard, which is the Illuminating Engineering Society of North America, which we are now members of, not really. But so they had determined it. They had determined this is a reasonable amount of light that a normal person would need to view products on display. And then at a gas station, they have decided to safely pump gas. To see what you're doing, you need 25. And to work at your desk, you need 20. I mean, they've done all this study. So we really just went with that. We just followed their rules. Now, in all the years that the code's been in play, we've never had a dealership come in to relamp their parking field. And even at the time, we thought that'll be the one. I mean, that'll be the thing that will be a challenge, and it just hasn't happened yet. I think the fixture's changing, and they have changed radically. The technology is amazing. It's really fascinating, so I will not talk about this forever, but at the end of the day, light levels are still light levels. So if we thought 10-foot candles was appropriate years ago, that doesn't change with it now being LED and flat glass. It's still that light level. Maybe our light level is too low, and we just, but again, it's only happened once in 13 years. So, we weren't looking at this as an opportunity to whole hog review the code. But yeah, the new stuff is really sharp, and it really the biggest problem people have with lighting is the glare, and that's when the glass is sagging down or fixtures are tilted up. And this new technology, not just LEDs, but all the mirrors and all the angling on the inside, it's fantastic. So the options are a lot better now than they were.
And the other thing I'll mention is, obviously underlying our lighting ordinance is the requirement to keep the light on the site. And if you look around the outer layer of this photometric diagram, they're almost all zeros or 0.2 or 0.3. That's good. That means the light, even though it may be, there may be some spots where it's 40 or 50, very close to the edge, because of the types of fixtures and how they're installed and aimed, all the lighting is contained on the site. So we're avoiding the spillover light or the glare that, you know, can be a real legitimate safety problem. So I think we look at it with our lighting standards, it's a combination of eliminating those safety issues as well as those what I would call nuisance issues, where you've got a neighbor that's got a light glaring in your bedroom window at night. So I think we've effectively done that. I think the other important factor underlying our lighting standards is we're just trying to be responsible and not overlighting the community, and that I think has broader implications, but. We want to make sure that you can provide enough light to go out and see the cars at night and, have a reasonable perspective on the automobile you're interested in purchasing, but not overlight it to the point where it's a lot of wasted light that is unnecessary. And that's what we're trying to achieve here. I think this is it's not code, but it's certainly a fair compromise. And I will credit the applicant. They have been pretty willing to work with us to try to bring their lighting plan into as close to conformance with code as they could get it. But certainly it doesn't meet code, and if your desire is that, hey, they're relighting, we need to meet code, I'm sure there are ways they can do that.
Further discussion? Mr. McBride?
I'll go ahead and take the hit. My thought is, and while first of all, it should be said that, I'm very excited, and I think most of us are very excited with the expansion. That's great for our community and hopefully great for the business. However, I'd like to see us adhere to the code, personally speaking, because, well, it's the code. And if we're going to deviate for something like this, then perhaps the code, as it now stands, is actually the problem. I also was kind of thinking about this, maybe from the perspective of those who drive by or live in the neighborhood. What are we talking about as far as business operations and actually needing to see the cars? In the dead of winter, dealership closes at 8 o'clock, sun sets before 4:30. So, in the dead of winter, we're talking about 3 hours where this is actually impacting the business. This time of year, it's not impacting the business at all. So, for those reasons, personally speaking, I'd like to see us adhere to the code.
Fair enough. Ms. Lorenz?
Probably a question maybe for you, Mercy. Can you elaborate on, I think is it the Mitsubishi or maybe the Hyundai, and where they're at, and maybe if there's a kind of precedence that's been set?
Sure. So we actually have a little light meter that we can run around with, and it's a simple tool. We're not going to claim that it's equivalent to a photometric study, but running around at O'Brien and at Hyundai late at night when the lights are on, the light levels seem to be comparable to this plan. About somewhere in the range of like 20 to 25 to 30, depending on where you're standing. So. Versus like for a regular commercial parking lot, Walmart on Veterans is a good example of 2-foot candles.
Okay.
And if you're in the Walmart parking lot, it seems perfectly evenly lit. Now, it's definitely not as bright as a dealership because you're not looking at cars, you're just getting to your car.
And were they granted a waiver at one point, or?
Their lights were in before the code.
Got it.
So,
okay. So
yeah.
kind of just grandfathered in. All right.
Further discussion on the item? Mr. Fritzen?
My understanding is to allow the plan that's submitted, we would have to amend the
That's correct.
recommendation. So I'll put that out there. I'll move we amend the recommendation to line up with the Planning Commission recommendation to allow the higher foot candle levels.
I think it might be better stated to make the amendment based on what was submitted tonight.
Okay. Because it's different for the
close,
planning,
but yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
to what was submitted tonight by the applicant.
Okay.
Second.
Second. Is there discussion on the amendment?
I just have
Mr.
one
McCarthy?
question. Thank you. It's a little confused. I want to clarify. A note at the end of our materials talked about the code requires that 2/3 of the outdoor lighting be turned off within an hour of the close of business. So is this stating that that's the code, or that they're going to be complying and that the duration that the light's on and potentially impacting the area around is reduced by business hours.
So code right now is the 2/3 go off an hour after business. And the reality is, in the dead of winter, when it's dark early, they close at 8, their lights are probably on till 10. And we don't run around saying it's 9 o'clock, your lights need to be out. It's kind of a complaint basis, and 10, 9, neither one seems more or less impactful, in my opinion, when
Okay.
you're on a 4-lane road. But, so we really we talked about it at commission, but that didn't really seem to be an issue. They do turn their lights off already after about an hour or two after the close of business.
Okay. Thank you.
Further on the amendment? Please call the roll.
Mr. McBride?
No.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Ms. Gaines?
Aye.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
No. The amendment is approved. That takes us back to the overall resolution. And is there further discussion on that item? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Ms. Gaines?
Aye.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McBride?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. The resolution is approved. That concludes our general orders. We have one item of new business tonight, and that is a motion to approve reappointments to the Children's Discovery Museum Foundation Board.
Second.
As this is a matter of personnel, there will be no discussion unless a council member would like to take this item to executive session. And not seeing a request for that, call the roll.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Ms. Gaines?
Aye.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McBride?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. Ms. Gaines, would you read those appointments?
Sure. The appointments are actually reappointment of Gina Mandros, Dr. Carolyn Halperin, Mr. Mark Jontry, and Mr. Jeff Mavros, excuse me. And they'll be filling out a full 3-year term, which will expire in June 30th of 2019. Thank them all for their service.
Absolutely.
That's great.
Yep. Thank you. Before taking a motion for adjournment, are there concerns or comments? Ms. Gaines?
I was just going to say that this last week, it was beautiful weather, of course, too. I mean, we were lucky also for the thing on Saturday night. There was all kinds of things going on this weekend. But Thursday night, I just want to say that the Loungeabout the Roundabout, that is one of the coolest gigs that happens, I think. You know, it's really fun. And it's perfect weather and people of all ages. And so really did enjoy that. And then it was lovely and good to see Mr. McBride out reliving his youth and childhood on Saturday night playing baseball. But he did great. I enjoyed that. Was a fun evening, too, up at the Corn Crib.
Great. Motion for adjournment? Oh, you gotta give me a little more signal there.
Just a little.
Yeah,
little one.
Mr. McCarthy.
Just actually kind of a similar comment to talk about the music and beer festival in Uptown on Saturday night. Was a great event. I saw several of us up there, and once again approached by a number of citizens asking, residents of the town of Normal, saying, can we continue to do these events? They're fun and it's really nice to do. And as far as I can tell, everybody was well behaved, and the security folks that I talked to didn't have any issues, and nothing went wrong. And but super well attended and a lot of positive feedback. So, and once again, thanks to Uptown Joe and his staff for making that a fun and great
Uptown
event.
Joe, I've not heard that.
Uptown Joe.
Joe, yeah.
I
You
think
may have asked it to be Mr. Uptown, but I'm not sure.
I think that may stick. Kevin.
Yeah.
Motion for adjournment.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Ms. Gaines?
Aye.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McBride?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Do a photo up here, Chris, or? Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. Anyway, kind of reevaluating a couple of years. They appreciated the offer made. I appreciate the connection, but you know, future everything's one. But how's everything else going? It's going, man. Yeah.